I was reviewing the video that you're about to watch, and I just wanted to let you know that I was noticing that I was shooting with my anchor point close by, close to my eye or close to my mouth. Everything that I say applies to even if you have a longer draw. So just keep that in mind, that even though you see me shooting like this, that everything applies even if you have a longer draw that goes out. Alright, so let me know if the video helps you out. Comment bottom of the thread or bottom of this video or in the thread, and happy shooting. Enjoy the video. Hi, it's Light Geoduck from the forums. In a previous video I showed you how to aim, or how I aim, where once to get a consistent shot is to keep your anchor point and your slingshot at the same place and basically move around to your target to keep that constant aiming point. Now I want to talk to how to find your sweet spot. Say you don't know where your anchor is, and how to make adjustments to find that right point. Now there are people that shoot instinctively or intuitively. That's where they're not using the fork as a reference, where they're just basically moving around and getting the feel and they hit their target. Now I can't do that, and not many people can or shoot that style. There are people that do. I'm going to talk to you mainly using the fork as a reference. Now there's as a sight. Now there's few ways to shoot a slingshot that you want to find out what's good for you. There's over the top. That's where your bands are going over the fork when you aim, and in essence shooting your ammo over the top of the fork. And it's over the top even if you hold the slingshot sideways or straight up. It's still clearing the forks. The other way will be through the forks. That's where the bands wrap around the outer side of the forks or inner side, and is shooting in between the gap of the fork, and that's shooting through the fork. No matter how it's attached, if it's straight like this or wrapped around to the side, that's shooting through the fork. Okay. Now the key things to remember when you hold your ammo in your pouch is to have a nice flat grip so you have a smooth release, and when you draw, to keep your elbow up where it's in line with the pouch. Okay, now when you're shooting over the top, gangster style, or through the fork, gangster style, you're using the top band or pouch, or band or tube, as a reference, a line reference to your target. And you're keeping the top band or tube in line with the bottom one, where it actually looks like one on your eye, one from your eye. So, and you're utilizing the top of the tube. If it's over the top, you're probably using the tube itself as at the bottom portion of the target, or the corner when it's over the top, as that's the main point of reference for your sighting. With this method, you most likely will be tilting your head to get it all lined up, get your eyes lined up. As you tilt your head, or wherever your head is tilted, it's going to move, and you left your hand, the front part of your hand straight. It's going to move your ammo to shoot up because you're lowering the back portion, and also it's moving your pouch out. So you want to keep that straight. So if you have to do that, if you move your head, you're in a sense keeping this all lined up and shooting. So even if you aim down here and you go down and you get to the point you're shooting too high, you're going to have to, if you shoot too high, you're going to have to raise your anchor point to keep this referenced at the target. Because if you move this, you will be out of sight of your target. So you sight in. If you're too high, you're going to want to either lower your head or raise your, you're shooting too high, you would raise your anchor up a little bit more and it would lower your shot. You have less flexibility when you're shooting through the fork. Because you can't go really too much on there, so you try to keep that straight and you're moving your whole hand. So when you shoot, you lower your head and you're just moving everything as one around to the target. I want to change my anchor a bit, keeping my reference, and I went a little bit too low. Like I said, you have more flexibility when it's going over the top for changing your anchor point. But just remember, anchor point up, ammo's going down, anchor point down, ammo's going up. Your front point, as you're centering it on your target, if you lower your fork, it's going to lower the ammo. Raise the fork, it's going to raise it. So it's sort of inverse. This is with it, and this is inverse. Now, if you're shooting over the top with your hand straight up, if you can see, as I'm referencing, if I turn it up, I'm raising my reference and you're up higher, so I won't have to change my anchor up to compensate for the force going up, and I'm changing my reference point. And normally when you shoot over the top upright, you want to use the inner portion of your inner up corner of your fork as the reference. Now by doing that, and you won't be using too much of your bands as the reference, you're just using straight corner of your sight. And when you do that, that's going to prevent you from having to lower your head. And if you lower your head, you're going to have to raise up your anchor point. So I want to shoot that way. You're going to notice the difference between where my anchor is and how I'm holding my head. It's still a little off, but you can see the difference. It's hard to adjust from one to the other. Now this is through the fork. Over the top. That's over the top gangster. This is over the top upright. So as you can see, I have different reference points for each one slighter than the other. Another thing that you can do, if you do shoot over the top upright and you're not quite getting it to the right at the center, you can't use that tip. Instead of moving it over, by twisting it just a little bit, you can get your fork, the top part of your fork, right to that point without doing too much of a change. That's straight up. I tilt my head a little bit too. I'm going with it. It's to keep the change minimal. So that's things to keep in mind when you're shooting, that trying to zero in on your sweet spot is, do you first shoot how it's comfortable and see where your ammo goes. If you're hitting it without using a reference that you prefer, and your reference is too low, you could raise your fork up. But if you're shooting too high, raise your anchor. If you're shooting too low and you have that range, just lower your anchor a little bit. And also, you keep in mind when you line up with your eye, if you tilt your head, even if you tilt your head and you're a little bit too, you might have to go, if you're a little to the left of your target and you're aiming at it, move your pouch left and that'll bring your ammo to the right. Move your pouch right, it'll bring your ammo to the left. And that's talking about once you find a sight. So hopefully I explained it right. If you don't quite understand, it's better to go out there and practice and do it yourself. See what's comfortable for you, and just keep in mind what the different changes. And you make one little change, see what it does. Change it back and change something else, and you'll eventually get to it. And like I said, no matter all the tips that you get, the main tip is to practice, practice, practice. So I hope this helped you guys out and gave you a little bit of a sight on the dynamics of shooting a slingshot. And enjoy, happy shooting, and see you on the forums. Peace.